Since menopause started, my sex drive has dropped a lot and is affecting how connected I feel in my relationship. Do you see psilocybin helping women reconnect with desire and feel more emotionally open during this stage of life? Hi, it's Dr. Denise with Microdose U here. So we've been looking a little bit more kind of generally, but then dialing specifically some of the unique health issues for women. And I just kind of want to say a couple of broad things. One is, if you didn't see the very first video, which was about 2.5 weeks ago, you might want to go back and watch that one. The second one was kind of addressing some questions. We've been getting amazing questions, and I have a bunch of questions today that I'm going to get right into in just a minute. So it is really great. Please keep those questions coming. It really is very helpful for us to direct, the topic of these videos. So it is true in general that a lot of what we say about microdosing is going to be the case for everyone. And what we always say is everyone's different. You can be different one day from yourself in terms of microdosing these psychedelic medicines. We're generally talking about psilocybin and also LSD, which, by the way, share a lot of the same properties and can work quite well together. They have a lot of the same sites of action. But in general, microdosing, there's going to be various factors that are going to contribute to how we as individuals might use these medicines to heal, grow, upgrade, and truly change our lives. When we're looking at just general, as I said, general principles that could apply to microdosing, it is very unique for each individual, which is why we talk about there is no one set way, and it even might vary for you as an individual day to day. So that's why we say it's kind of like there are trends, and yet there can be such variation. So now when we look at women's health, a lot of those general trends are going to apply. And yet what we know is that there are, due to changes over the course of time, even within a month cycle, where the microdosing can really be fine-tuned to help with the particular maybe challenges, or just to really have it align with what's happening in our lives, both physically and psychologically. So I just wanted to sort of say overall that we know that that's to be the case, and that anything that we talk about here at Microdose U and anything I mention in these videos and the answers to your questions, it may be a little trial and error, which we know that can be very frustrating. And yet that's how these medicines work. The medicines are going to really tailor to you, and we ask you to work alongside with these medicines. So much like any microdosing, if you're looking at, say, perimenopause issues, when things start to kind of become very inconsistent over the course of changes in hormonal levels, it's still very important to remember that you're not just taking the medicine, having some psilocybin and then going about your business, that it's very important to continue to do the work alongside, set those intentions, something like, I'm grateful to the medicine for it helping me to upgrade, regulate, heal, so whatever the desired outcome is. And then also, regardless of what the particular issues are that you're healing and upgrading, that you look at microdosing as one part of that entire healing package, if you will. So if we look at perimenopause, it's very important that women do the things that they know will help alongside the microdosing, not just the work alongside microdosing, but also it's very important that women get enough protein and their hydration and meditation, journaling. All of these things are going to be very important to do alongside the microdosing. So I'm going to spend some time looking at some of the specific questions. It's going to be kind of brief, but we love these questions, and I want to answer the particular individuals who take time to write in and leave us a question. I want to get to those specific questions and answer those if we can. So Megan writes, ever since perimenopause started, I feel like my emotions are all over the place and I'm losing my sense of confidence. Can psilocybin help women reconnect with themselves in a more grounded way? Thank you. That is a great question. Excellent question, Megan. And the short answer is yes. So it is very much the norm, not the exception, that women will experience this sort of like all over the place, and like things are just not the way they've always been, and that can really have an effect on our self-esteem, our confidence. It just can be very ungrounding. What we know about psilocybin is that it does help us rewire and change, and even at a non-perimenopause time of life, that confidence can increase. So during these during perimenopause, when there's such dramatic changes all over the place because estrogen drops, progesterone drops, and it's not the same as the menstrual cycle where it's going to fluctuate. It's literally dropping and everything's kind of going haywire. And the amount of these hormones drops considerably. And then that affects our serotonin. Serotonin has a direct impact on our mood, on our confidence, on our brain fog, our sleeping, cortisol, all of these things. So what we know about psilocybin, microdosing LSD, psilocybin, is that it directly targets the serotonin. So it's sort of like the body's looking to regulate itself. It's looking for almost like a substitute to kind of upgrade and regulate. And so the psilocybin actually will do that. And this is where microdosing really has an advantage over doing macro doses, because with a microdose, you're kind of doing a more consistent dose, and then your body's getting what it needs kind of in small doses, and it can regulate. Macro doses can be wonderful too for other reasons, but it's not going to have that, take a macro dose and then you're going to really regulate the perimenopause symptoms. It's really about sort of having those consistent dosing schedules. And what we do know about microdosing, it is overall healing and upgrading. And yet there is something to this kind of schedule of microdosing with some regularity in helping the perimenopause shift. Because things are haywire, anything you can do with consistency is going to help. The body say, well, these things are going haywire, but here we're doing this as a more consistent foundation. And because the psilocybin helps with the serotonin, that's going to actually be very physiologically and psychologically helpful. So hopefully that helps answer that specific question. Kind of related, second question from Tara. Since menopause started, my sex drive has dropped a lot and is affecting how connected I feel in my relationship. Do you see psilocybin helping women reconnect with desire and feel more emotionally open during the stage of life? Absolutely terrific question. I'm very repetitive, but this is the rule, not the exception. And the drop in energy and like sexual libido and sex drive, there's nothing wrong with you. It's very common, but one of the things that we see is women don't talk about this. They feel like, oh, there's something wrong with me. And maybe their significant others like, what's wrong with you? And it can have such a ripple effect on how we feel and how things go in connecting with ourselves, with our partners in relationship. These medicines, psilocybin, will absolutely help regulate all of the things that are affected during perimenopause, menopause, even at other points in life. So what we know is that psilocybin, again, directly is going to impact serotonin, which affects energy, mood, cortisol, sleep, brain function. During menopause, perimenopause, menopause, this is going to regulate some of that, as I already said, haywiring. So if you regulate the physiology, which has an effect on the energy and the psychological aspect of being and how you relate to yourself and your partner, psilocybin, microdosing psilocybin is absolutely going to have that positive ripple effect on libido, sex drive, and then consequently your relationship. Now, I do want to just pause for a second and add that, of course, there's many factors. It's like a little bit of a puzzle of what's affecting, say, sexual drive. There could be other factors. So somebody could be feeling perfectly fine, and yet maybe there's something else going on that's not related to perimenopause or menopause. So it's important really to look at all of the factors. A lot of times when I'm working with someone more intensive that does some of our coaching, we really do look at every little, like no stone unturned. We're going to look at every little thing that's going on, how people are feeling, what their internal thoughts are, if there's any internal thoughts that are connected to how they feel about their bodies, for example. Microdosing will help that as well. But that's a piece of it. So even if the physiology is okay, but in someone's brain, they're like, oh, I don't like my body. It's terrible. What's happening? That could really be a part of what's getting in the way too of, desire and energy. So, and then obviously things like if there's problems in the relationship that have nothing to do with perimenopause or menopause, that would get looked at as well. So when we work with people at Microdose U, we really are trying to get a feel of what's going on all levels. And then when you're microdosing, to really address all of those levels, whatever they may be. Again, physiological, psychological, being grateful and asking the medicine to help upgrade. That's how you set the intention. Okay, moving on. This question is from Heart Forward Heather. And her question is, I've been having trouble sleeping because of night sweats and anxious thoughts. Again, oh, so common and horrible. Have you seen women use microdosing specifically to stabilize their sleep cycle during this stage of sleep? And again, short answer, yes, absolutely. The anxiety, the night sweats, I mean, it's just, it throws everything off. And then you're like the next day, cortisol still thrown off. And, what happens during the day is going to affect how you sleep at night. And it's just kind of a snowball effect. So what we know is that microdosing can have that stabilizing effect on anxiety. It really is very successful in dealing with anxiety and depression at any point in the life cycle, but particularly when there's physiology changes in hormones, it really can have that stabilizing effect. So the trouble sleeping is somewhat anxiety can get in the way of sleep. I'm sure we've all known what that's like. But when the perimenopause, it's literally throwing off the cortisol, which is what regulates the sleep cycle. So all of these symptoms of anxiety and brain fog and irregular sleep patterns, and then because of the hormonal changes, literally the body goes through these heat waves, and in these kind of the night sweats it can really be uncomfortable, and women will wake up and be like, I got to change my clothes, and it's physically uncomfortable. So all of these pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, can contribute. So what the psilocybin and the microdosing will do is start to begin to rewire that, to stabilize, so that it takes the edge off that. And then the more you take the edge off these destabilized aspects of hormones and physiology, the more your body can learn to kind of sleep and find its way again. So we definitely see a lot of success in regulating the sleep. Okay, moving to Sabrina. Her question: my motivation and energy tank around my cycle. Absolutely. Does microdosing help with that mental flatness a lot of women talk about, or is that more of a hormone thing? So it's interesting, Sabrina, because it's both, right? It's not an either or, it's an and. That the microdosing absolutely can help, and I'll talk in just a minute about the kind of part of the cycle, because it is helping the hormone regulation. So it's not really that these are separate things, and we have to remember we're one being, and whatever's going on in this part of my body or this part of my life, we're connected. It might not be causal, but it's all happening in the same kind of being, so it's going to have an impact. So you really want to work with all of those factors. So just to review, I know I talked about this in the first video. Now we're talking not about perimenopause and menopause. And so some of the things I say about the cycle or the menstrual cycle may sound a little contradictory, and it's because it is a little different during the normal monthly fluctuations. So when we're talking about the menstrual cycle, just to really review quickly, and I'm always reminded of how much women, including myself, we think we know these things because you just sort of go along, and yet it's astounding how much I have to remind myself of what the actual cycle is. So just really quickly, the menstrual cycle is kind of, we'll go by the 28 days. There's a lot of variation in that, but generally that's what we're looking at. And when we talk about the cycle, I'll start with the first part of the cycle, which is the menstrual part. When people say, what's the first day of your, beginning of your last period? That's the menstrual cycle. And that's usually day, we'll call it 1 through 5. And that is when estrogen and progesterone drop. They're a little bit lower. And this is actually a good time to kind of take it easy, to rest. A lot of women might feel like they're a little more tired. And it is a good time, with these things being lower, to remember to lower your microdose. Some women skip. Those are their days that they might have off days. And that's kind of a good time to do. Let's just say your microdose is 150 milligrams normally. So during that, you might skip a couple of days, or you might lower it, say, to 100 or 75. Again, I'll just sort of add a footnote. There's a bit of experimentation. Some women will tell me that that's a good time to go a little higher. That's not generally the trend, but it can be the exception. And so, it does take a little bit of trial and error. So that's the menstrual phase of the cycle, days 1 through 5. Lower energy, lower estrogen, progesterone. So a good time to lower or skip. As I've said, that's different, sounds different than perimenopause, menopause, because it is. So the second is the follicular part, and that is days, part of the cycle. That's days 6 through 13 approximately. Now estrogen begins to rise, energy begins to rise, and this is a really good time to microdose your normal dosage level and schedule. If you're planning on going up a little bit, this is a good time to kind of experiment with that. Then we go into days 14, 15, 16. Days 14 through 16 is ovulation. This is a great time to microdose, actually. Energy is usually good. Physiologically, we tend to be a little more social, might feel like a little more creative during that particular time. Then we go to days 17 through 28. 17 through 28 is the luteal part of the phase. This is when, and this may answer a little bit about that specific feeling, that flatness that you're asking about, Sabrina. So, does microdose help with that flatness? So this is the days 17 through 28. A lot of women would call, if you're going to have PMS, if you're going to have the sort of sensitive, I feel bloated, I feel I feel cranky, whatever. This is generally when women are talking about. So it's before the menstrual period. So that's why they call it PMS. This is when it's good to slightly, once again, lower the microdose. Again, in general, it may seem like the opposite. So if I'm talking to someone that's talking about depression and flatness, it makes sense to kind of look at, increasing microdose levels, or if it's not, if I'm working with someone and they're, microdosing, say 150, and it doesn't feel like it's doing much of anything, and they've been doing that for a few weeks, I might say, go up to 200, especially if it's like they feel like that, might not just be addressing the depression or the anxiety that they're experiencing. So this is why I say, with the cyclical nature of a woman's cycle, it's going to sound a little opposite, that during PMS is because there's a sensitivity. A lot of women say this is not a good time to go to the dentist because the gums can be a little bit more sensitive. If you have things going on, and you're having a cleaning, you might feel like, why is this bothering me a little bit more than usual? It is because everything's tends to be a little more sensitive. So it is good to lower the microdose. So even though there's a flatness, which seems kind of counter to what I was saying, that is the time to lower the dose. However, Sabrina, if you then increase the microdose at the other two, not the menstrual phase, but then the follicular and the ovulation part of the cycle, you increase, that's going to then help during the flatness, even though you're lowering your dose during the flatness phase during that PMS. I know it's like a lot of factors. I always feel like we're trying to put a puzzle piece together. So hopefully that clarifies. And then the last question here from Inner Compass. Oh, I'm sorry, Inner Compass Amy. I love that. Can microdosing support women who feel disconnected from their bodies after years of stress, kids, or hormonal changes? I'm wondering if it helps with self-compassion and body awareness. Absolutely, yes. We do know that microdosing psychedelic medicines absolutely helps us kind of rewire and reset and shift around those default mode settings, if you will, the default mode network within our brain and in our body. So, and it opens us up a little bit more. And certainly when you're microdosing, specifically asking for that, and the intention being to feel level and calm, more connected with your body, and regulating and having a sort of balance in your life. There's one of the other things that I'll make mention of here is that there's a lot written about new moms, and moms of young children microdosing, moms on mushrooms, I think is what, if you look that up, you'll come across a lot of information on that. And that moms feel like they're just better mothers. They're happier, they're nicer, they have a renewed sense of energy. And that is because of, they're microdosing, probably along with other things that they're doing. It's rewiring, it's reconnecting themselves with their bodies, their beings, and again, having that stabilizing kind of grounding effect. So absolutely a definite, tool and helping. And I will say this, that in terms of self-compassion and body awareness, that is something to have always in life, and to work on that. And I say to act as if, so to say, I am compassionate, and that when we're dosing, to say, I'm going to continue to be compassionate to myself. We tend to offer compassion and understanding to others and not so much to ourselves. So definitely to intend to do that, our narrative in our head, our perspective is going to have a tremendous impact on how things go. If I look at a day and it's raining and I go, oh, it's going to be a terrible day, it's raining, it's miserable, it's going to be a miserable day. If I look at the day and I go, all right, well, it's raining, maybe I didn't want it to rain today, but all right, well, it's raining, I'll dress for it, it's fine, I'll see what's possible. There's a much better chance my day is going to go better. So a lot of perspective, and the brain really hears that. Every cell in our body hears it's going to be a good day, regardless of the weather. And then when we're microdosing, we're really telling the medicine, and the medicine is hearing, and then, it sounds a little like I'm personifying, medicine, but we are kind of trusting the wisdom of these medicines. So if I'm saying, well, it's going to be a great day, even though it's raining, and then, the medicine is hearing that, believe it or not, and our cells are hearing that. So it all comes together kind of as the perfect, I was going to say it's perfect storm, but in a good way, to really create our best self and have our day go well. And then overall, have things go much better. So definitely so advantageous, so helpful in regulating, improving our physiology and our psychological well-being. So That's the end of the questions for the day. I hope I answered some questions. It's Dr. Moret, Dr. Denise at Microdose U. And remember to check out the show notes. We always have, go to microdoseu.com. There's a lot of free information. There's a lot of useful information there. Certainly join the Patreon. It's a small fee. And then there's a whole live community there, and we talk about a lot of these things, and you can get a lot of your questions answered live. Please keep writing in the questions, particularly on women's health, so we can dial in some of those particular questions that you have for us. We always mention, if you want to really work specifically, go to the Microdose U website, click on coaching, and get in touch with us that way, and we can really then work specifically with you. So thanks again for being here. Thank you, Dr. Dave, for having me on Microdose U, and we will continue with this Microdose U podcast, and specifically to dial in women's health and how we can really microdose for women's health issues. Thanks very much. See you soon.